Thank you, Sarah, very, very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all, it's not a post-lunch crowd, so I don't sing as well as Yoni, so I'm not going to lead you in a nigun, but maybe you can think about it in your head and get that, and I won't ask you to stand up and do jumping jacks, but I think we get the point. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's a little overwhelming. I know that because last night I didn't sleep very well, and I actually had an anxiety dream for the first time in a long, long time. I thought I was well past that. How many of you have anxiety dreams? Yeah, lots of us. I know there's sort of all different kinds. My kind is the one where it's a week before graduation of college and you haven't gone to any of the classes, right? So last night's version was a much better version. It was updated and it was in Technicolor and it was beautiful and Dolby Sound and 3D. It was great, but it's still the same kind of anxiety. And when I got up this morning, I couldn't understand why, and I thought about the impressive people that I'm going to be talking to right now, this audience of accomplished folks who have done more in the years that you've been alive than so many of us have done in much longer careers. And then I thought also about the speaker tomorrow, Bernard-Henri Lévy, and that could have kept me up just alone, because when you know that someone like BHL is following you, it's a little intimidating. So I'm going to try and do my best today to share some thoughts with you, some personal thoughts with you, some thoughts about the foundation, the Jewish world, and then also set the context for our next session. I love the opportunity to talk to the ROI Summit, to other kinds of gatherings that we have for one primary reason, and that's because I get the opportunity, even though I'm on a short time limit, I get the opportunity to say thank you to people, and you don't always have the opportunity to say thanks so publicly. So I want to take a few of my precious minutes, and if I run over, I apologize to the folks in the back. I want to start by, of course, thanking Lynn and Stacy Schusterman for everything they do for all of us and for everyone. So thank you. Thank you. I want to thank also the incredible ROI team that's here, that all of you have been working with, just the best in the business. I want to thank also the foundation colleagues, some of whom were recognized by Noah, I think, at the opening, the other on the Schusterman Family Foundation. And I know it's always dangerous to pick a name or two, to say a name or two, but there are two people who are here today who have done an extraordinary job with regard to the foundation and our work, and Lynn and Stacy over the last couple of days, and they rarely get the sort of public shout out, so I want to make sure they know how much we love them and appreciate what they do. And I'd like to say to Erica Mandel and Ayelet Habani, thank you for everything you do for us. I want to thank, of course, all the speakers that we had. I thought Yoni did an amazing job in the tech study this morning. I thought Mary Eisen was fantastic. And then, as I said, we have some great speakers who are still following. Our Brain Date partners, our colleagues at Roots, without whom we couldn't do anything, certainly in the logistics. And they do so much more for us than just the summit. Our hotel staff, the staff of this hotel is as welcoming and hospitable as any place you can find. And lastly, of course, thank you to all of you who took the time to do the applications, to do the work, to do what we've asked you to do, and then to open yourselves up when you came here to really make this exactly the kind of experience that we want you to have and from which you will feel enriched and empowered as we leave here tomorrow. So thank you all very much to all of you. So as Sarah said, and we talked about earlier, the theme of today is sight. And that's an issue that actually has been on my mind for an odd reason for a lot of time, for the last 6 or 7 months. It turns out that I had to have cataract surgery. And the only good news about the cataract surgery is that when I went in, they said, you're awfully young to have cataract surgery. And that's about the only thing left in my life when people look at me and say, you're awfully young, right? So it was a very positive element. So cataract surgery. Then just about a month ago, I was telling Justin the story today, just about a month ago, I had an idiopathic migraine. I don't know how many of you know what an idiopathic migraine is, but sitting in the middle of a meeting, I just suddenly lost sight. in my left eye, the same eye in which I had the cataract. I was explaining that to my friend, the doctor, and I said they diagnosed it as idiopathic. And he says, do you know what idiopathic means? And I said, no. He said, the doctor is an idiot and the patient is pathetic. I said, okay, got it. For those of you who don't know what it really means they don't have any idea why it was caused. It's non-diagnosable. And then now, for those of you, some of you have seen, you may have seen that I have a very bloodshot eye. It's just one of those things that people get every now and then, a bruise in the eye. The only advantage of this is if you use an old camera and you take a picture of me, my eye actually turns out white than it does red. But I've been thinking about this because I've had so many issues with my left eye these last several months. And it's relevant to the discussion today for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, it involves vision. And that's what we're talking about today, is sight and vision. The second is that when I chose the lens that I chose to insert in my left eye during cataract surgery has left me in a position where my left eye sees far and my right eye sees near. Right? So the eyes compensate for each other, they work together. So my left eye sees far and my right eye sees near. And to think about it, that's something I think all of us need to do today, perhaps now more than ever. We have to keep one eye on what's immediate and right in front of us, and we have to keep the other eye on longer term issues. Now, in many ways, the immediate ain't looking so good. Not enough time today to list all of the world's problems, and not to mention those that our beloved Jewish people are confronting here in Israel and all over the globe. As Charlie Schusterman used to say, as Sarah mentioned, it's hard to think about draining the swamp when you're knee-deep in alligators. And yet, we must do exactly that. Together, we need to find a way to convey important messages to young Jews throughout the world, including 3 urgent ones that relate to contemporary Jewish life. The first is that Jewish identity is a point of strength and pride. Second, that a strong relationship with Israel can play an incredibly meaningful role in their lives. And third, that the Jewish people, wherever they live, have a responsibility to help make the world a better place for all humanity, not just for ourselves. We also need to use our other eye to keep long-term picture in mind. We need to acknowledge, appreciate, and seek to take advantage of the inevitable changes on the horizon. 3 big changes. 1, the demographic shift in our community. In North America, more than 70% of young Jews today are choosing to marry or partner with people from other faith communities. That's not just a statistic. That is a paradigmatic shift of what it means to be a Jew in North America, and it's something we need to think about, it's something we need to come to grips with, and it demands that we'll have a new kind of language, a new way to talk about being Jewish in the 21st century. The second is the need to celebrate diversity and inclusion, not to take a look at what we see as the increasing intermarriage in our community and bringing new faces in our community. We need to not decry that. We need to celebrate that. We need to understand that this is tremendous potential for Jewish life. That so many more people coming in, so many more people to contribute, so many more perspectives to help make the Jewish people stronger and to help to make the world stronger. And the third is the desire of people, especially young people, to feel a part of something bigger than themselves as they search for meaning in an incredibly complex world. So why is it so important for you to see both near and far? Because many Jewish leaders, and particularly those in what we call the organized Jewish community, cannot see very well for themselves. In fact, they have cataracts in both eyes. But beware. Even those of you with perfect vision can fall victim to 3 common psychological phenomena related to sight. The first is confirmation bias. This is an unconscious tendency to ignore, avoid, or distort information that would show our preconceptions to be wrong. As Talia mentioned earlier today, we don't see people as they are, we see people as we are. Or as Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says, when we open our mouths to describe what we see, we in effect describe ourselves, our perceptions, and our paradigms. An example of this is a deck of playing cards. Now, what looks like a normal deck or a deck of playing cards are the four suits of a playing cards. To many of you, do you see anything that's unusual about that? Right, the colors are reversed. Now, in an experiment that was started back in the 1920s and then later through the 40s, what they did is showed, like in flashcards, I know all of you are too young for flashcards, but in the flashcards they would show various cards, and in the middle of the deck, the colors would be reversed. And very, very few people noticed it because they were expecting something. They had a preconceived notion. So they didn't actually see what was in front of them. What their mind was telling them was something else, not the reality that was in front of them. They weren't seeing the different colors. They were seeing what they thought they were seeing. That's known as confirmation bias. It's something of which we all have to be very careful. We have to be cognizant of it, and we have to be careful that we don't fall prey to it. The second is called selective attention. Selective attention is the phenomenon of seeing something without recognizing it or acknowledging it in your mind. Because you are focused on the whole, you may not distinguish its distinct parts. So let's put up the slide. We'll take two things. I don't know how many of you, maybe some of you have seen this, but for this obviously is the Fedex logo. How many of you see something in the logo that's not just FedEx? What is it? The arrow, right? The arrow with the E and the X. Now, most people don't know that. It was a tremendous logo design as they designed a logo to show it going forward, but that's something that most people don't see. That is part of selective attention. Let's try something a little bit closer to home. The ROI logo. Anybody see something in the ROI logo? I'm sorry? Oi? Yeah, it was there. We took it out. Anybody? Mogen David. Right? Right? So we're talking about selective attention. When you're looking at something, you're seeing it just for itself. You're not really thinking about what else may be there. The third phenomenon is something called unintentional blindness. Now, this is when something is there, even maybe right in front of you, and you don't see it because you are searching for something else. Let's try this. Now, what this is a slide of somebody's lungs. It was an experiment given to radiologists to ask them to look for cancer cells. So they gave this slide to radiologists and said, go tell us how many cancer cells are in the lungs. 50% of the radiologists who took this failed to see that little thing that's in it. Do you all see what's in it? You're not looking for cancer. You're cheating because you're not looking for cancer cells. Marcus? See the gorilla? Now, this is the second part of an experiment. There was an experiment that also some of you may have seen on the YouTube video, if you haven't, of people passing a basketball around, and in the middle of it, a gorilla comes in and starts pounding its chest and then walks away. And 70% of the people who see that video never see the gorilla. In a different test that was done with radiologists, 83% of the radiologists did not see a gorilla when they were looking for the cancer cells. This, again, is something we could call unintentional blindness. And this is all to say that we cannot accept everything we see at face value. We have to understand our limitations when it comes to seeing what is going on around us. If you want to change reality, you first have to see reality. That's what we're trying to talk about today, this day of sight, and this is what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. We must seek to see things as they are, not just the way we want them to be or the way we think they are. And that is why we are counting on all of you to help each other out. Because we do not want you to see the world only through your own eyes. We want you to strengthen your vision together. Because collectively, we can help avoid these biases and we can see more clearly. And our hope is that this vision would lead to action. Because part of what we do here at ROI is give you the tools and the connections, not only to undertake projects, but to bring people together with a common purpose. We need you to be parts of movements for change, especially those that will inform Israel's toughest decisions. This is somewhat of a shift for ROI. If we think about ROI 360 and ROI 2.0, we can think about this a bit as ROI 3.0. How do we take this network? How do we take this community? And how do we form movements out of it, help lead movements, change movements within Israel and elsewhere in the Jewish community? This is something we're going to be talking about further as you become more engaged in the ROI community. But I want you to begin thinking about it today, which is not just how do you leave from here to do your individual work or to bolster your individual communities, take advantage of your weak ties, but how do we also build together some stronger ties and create movements for change? Israel needs your help tackling the complex challenges that come with its identity as a Jewish democratic state and a positive force for global Jewish people and the world. We need your help making sure that Israel lives up to those standards, lives up to those ideals. One of Israel's great leaders was also a champion for vision. President Shimon Peres used to say, we should use our imagination more than we use our memory. I've been saying for a few years now that these are urgent times, that these times demand us to act more quickly than we would have thought, that when we sat down and talked about the ROI community and developed the ROI program, we had a very long-term vision. We thought that if we could spread the seeds, let 1,000 flowers bloom, that ultimately those flowers would help beautify the world and make the world a better place. But that's a long-term strategy. The world has shifted. We know things have sped up, and we know that we're facing challenges today that we didn't even recognize 3-4 years ago. That requires us to act now, to deal with the challenges in front of us with a much greater sense of urgency. There has never been a time for us to use our imaginations to envision a better future than there is right now. In fact, it's not just a better time, it's essential. This is what we need from you. This is what we need from your friends. This is what we need from everyone who wants to contribute to the Jewish world and to making the broader community a better place. So as this summit winds down, as we begin to come to the close, I want you to start envisioning what you are going to do to change the reality on the ground for the Jewish people, for Israel, and for the world. I want you to embrace the theme of sight and picture for yourself what it would actually mean for you to move forward with your work. It's easy to talk about change in the abstract. It's easy to say this should happen and hope someone else steps forward to do it. But we're asking you to do more than just talk in the abstract. We're asking you to be the Nachshonim. We're asking you to be the ones to step forward, to be the first person who puts his legs into the Red Sea so that the sea can part. Because without that first person, without that first step, the seas never part and the Israelites never leave Egypt. And we want you to take that step forward and share with each other how you plan to go about making it happen. Not just a dream, but how do you turn your dreams into reality? Now, shortly, you will get a short break, and you will probably be distracted by some of the conversations you had in your pods and some of the refreshments. But we want you to try and find a couple of minutes to sit and see yourself responding to our calls for action. We want you to keep this thought in mind that because when you come back together in this room, you will participate in what are known as vision circles. Specifically, you will be asked to respond to the following prompt. It's July 5th, 2018, 1 year from today, and I have successfully created change by, right? Let's all say it together so we sort of get imprints. Let's all say it together. It's July 5th, 2018, and I have successfully created change by. And so you're going to take the next few minutes to think about what is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you plan to accomplish? How do you think you're going to get there? And then we're going to come back in and we're going to share that with each other. We're going to share that because it'll help concretize the thoughts in your mind. It'll help make a little bit more clear the actions that you need to take. And hopefully you'll think about it as a little bit of a promise of a pledge, having made it, to make sure that you do it. And to make sure that on July 5th, 2018, you will look back and say, I made a promise a year ago and I've achieved it. And for that, the world is a better place. So I hope that this talk and talk about vision and sight has given you some food for thought and that you're ready to put your imagination to work. Kol hakavod for what you're already giving to your communities, to your families, to Israel, to the Jewish people, and to the world. And toda rabbah. Thank you very much for what you're going to contribute in the future. Thank you.